Okay, so Bhauthik, okay, we provide this coaching classes for NetGate and all. So all of the guys you're teaching are from IITs. Okay, so we have cleared the exam, so we know what we're doing. And say, like I told you, this is our fifth batch coming up. So we only had one net exam because of COVID and all. And gate exam, we have been successful. In last batch, we had 8 guys who cleared the exam. So the interesting thing that we tell our students is that most of the guys will be looking to go for coaching or to prepare for this exam after they finish their MSc. Fine, that's a mindset. But we tell our students that you have to prepare right along with your MSc. So we proved that last time. So we have a MSc first year, I mean first sem student. She joined with us, and in her first attempt itself, she cleared the exam. She got somewhere around 720 rank, 729 or something. So it's not impossible, a huge task or something. What are you studying in your MSc? That's what they ask in the exam as well. So you should be able to clear the exam by the time you finish MSc. So that's what we provide you. We know our approaches and all. So we have been like all the guys have cleared that exam with 100 ranks or something. So we know how to teach you, what to look for, and what to do so that you can clear these exams. Okay. So from this term onwards, we'll be taking only limited number of students because we maintain this one-to-one contact. So if you have some doubts or something, so you can ask us personally through WhatsApp. So we clear it. Okay. So our students should know it. So like I said, if you want to clear this exam, don't wait till you finish MSc, or if you want to go abroad, in that case too, don't wait till that point. Maybe like you'll think, okay, after this time, I'll start thinking what to do and all. So right time, you have to start preparing. You have to start thinking about the future. Okay. So I'm not wasting much time. I'll give a intro of our speakers. So I'm glad to host you guys because one is my classmate, Aviral Prakash. He's doing his PhD from Pennsylvania State University, USA. So he's working in theoretical physics, gravitational waves and all. Okay, so he's my classmate actually. And then the next guy, Mufid, he's working in France. He's working in experimental condensed matter physics. He's doing his PhD in CRISPR. Okay. So he'll be talking to you. Mufid will be talking to you how to get a PhD in Europe. And Abigail will be talking you through how to get a postman in US. Fine. So the talk will be like, first they'll give a brief overview, like they'll cover all the main topics, and then you can interact with them. Mostly it's an interactive session, so you can ask your questions. Any doubts you have, you can ask them. They'll be willing to answer that. Okay. So meanwhile, if you are having any trouble or any doubts or something, either you can put in the chat box or raise your hand, or you can text me directly. Okay. In the WhatsApp group, there is this admin. So I think you should know my number. So you can text to any of the admins. We'll reply to that. Okay. So Avi, I think you can start that. Not taking much time.
Okay. No worries. So first of all, am I audible to everyone?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So first of all, thank you, Praveen, for giving me this opportunity and hosting me on your very good platform, Bhauthik Academy of Physics. I am actually very, very humbled and honored for this invitation, and I'm extremely glad that I could be of some help to all the young minds who are listening and getting started with physics. I would before I begin my talk, I would just say that Praveen has been a very, very close friend of mine. I have known Praveen for around 6 years, and it is very admirable starting something from scratch and giving back to society the kind of thing he's doing with the Bhauthik Academy of Physics. He's actually influencing people, and that is what one of the major roles of a good scientist, of a good educator should be. Okay. So let me now start sharing my screen. I will now present to you. Okay. So I think now the presentations has, can you see my presentation?
Yes, Abhi.
Is it available in full screen right now?
Yeah. Yes.
For everyone. Okay. Wonderful. So today I will talk about some tips and tricks for your graduate career. And what I mean, of course, by this word is by the word graduate is in the United States, uh, anything which is above a bachelor's degree is considered graduate, unlike postgraduate as we call it in India. So might as well try to get accustomed with some of the terminology here. Okay, so I have compiled a list of tips which will be helpful to everyone, and after my talk, I will also distribute these slides, which I'm about to show you, because I will not go over each and every detail for the fear of losing people's attentions. But I will also circulate these slides through Praveen, so every one of you will have all the access to the material that I will present. So before beginning, a little bit about myself. This is how I look. I passed out from IIT Madras in 2018, and hopefully I will graduate from Penn State in 2024. 5 to 6 years is approximately the time duration for a PhD. What I do is something which is a branch of computational astrophysics. So in the sense, I do astrophysics on computers. And in the field of computational astrophysics, I specialize in a very, very specialized field that's called numerical relativity. Okay, numerical relativity is essentially a combination of two fields, one from mathematics, which is numerical methods, and one from physics, which is general relativity. So to put in one line, what I do is I am solving Einstein's equations on supercomputers. What are Einstein's equations? They are just glorified versions of Newton's gravitation law. Okay, to be kept very, very simple in a very, very simple fashion. Okay, and for example, what I'm showing you on the right is a result of one of our computations. This is a merger of two neutron stars. This is one, and this is the other neutron star, and their atmospheres are interacting as they are trying to merge. So this is an actual computation which was carried out on a supercomputer here in the United States. And this is an actual rendering, an actual volume rendering. So this is based on actual physics and no animation, so to speak of. Okay, so uh, enough about me. You can, if you are interested in this kind of physics, or if you are interested in this field of research, you can find out more about our research group at these links uh, and the kind of physics we do. Uh, but keeping all of this aside, I would just like to briefly tell you what the plan for the talk is. So I will take approximately 20-25 minutes, maybe less, because we also have to have listen to the exciting talks about Europe in the next talk. So approximately 20 minutes of my presentation, and the remainder of the time, I will be very happy to address all the questions that you will have. Okay. So in the beginning, if you are looking for doing your graduate education, and by graduate education, I mean master's and PhD in the United States, this is roughly a list of things which you will need. Okay, so I have listed 8 of the things. Of course, the very first thing should be your intention. This point 0 should be that you should be interested in coming here and investing rather 5 years of your life in graduate school, trying to further the boundaries of science. So I will briefly touch upon all of these 8 all of these 8 options, all of these 8 bullet points, and you will observe that I have grouped these 8 bullet points into 3 categories. There is a highest priority. There is something which is of equal priority but lesser than the highest priority, and then there are something which are called the qualifiers. Okay, so what I mean by that is when you are applying to the United States or universities in the United States, these 3 things carry the most weight. Okay, these 3 things will be the most important in your application. A good school, which means a good choice of the university, a good place where you are applying to, good grades, and considerable research experience. Okay, it does not have to be like you have published a paper or something, but some research experience that talks the most in your application. Then come the statement of purpose and letters of recommendation. And finally, there are these examinations, GRE Physics, GRE General, and TOEFL examination. But by the time when I was taking or when I was applying to graduate schools in the United States, these 3 examinations, all of them were compulsory. But the good thing right now is that the GRE General exam is optional. So if you do not want to write, I do not think there will be any negative impact on your application. So GRE General has been, it hasn't been scraped off completely. It is optional, which means you may write, you may choose not to write. Similarly, for GRE Physics, it is optional but highly recommended. So I will not say that you need to write GRE Physics, but if you want a certain edge to your application, taking GRE Physics exam is something which is highly recommended. And finally, TOEFL is of course required. That's test of English as a foreign language. Okay. So I will very briefly go over these points. So first of all, how to choose your schools. Okay. So this is where you need to do a lot of homework. You will need to spend countless hours in front of the internet trying to browse different catalogs of different schools. You'll need to spend a good amount of time reading about the graduate programs in physics at the different kinds of schools you're applying to. Read the profile of the faculty. What are the research experiences or what are the research works of these faculties? Okay, what are the experimental facilities that are available in the physics department there? The kind of exposure you may get, and make notes as you do it. Because when you're making notes, this will come in very handy when you are starting to draft your statement of purpose. All of this homework is very important, and this should be the very first step in your applications. That is to shortlist a particular set of schools, a particular set of universities you will apply to. Okay. Uh, then a typical application, of course, covers 7 to 8 universities. And how do you make that list? How do you go about choosing which school is good and which school is bad? Okay, so this is a rough estimate to help you how to organize your schools. Okay, so what I did or what I found useful was to classify different universities according to these 3 categories. I classified my universities as dream schools, intermediate schools, and safety schools. So what I mean by dream schools is the top tier colleges like MIT, Harvard, Princeton, Caltech. I applied to some of them. I got rejected by everyone except one of them. And that's where I am studying right now. I went to Penn State and I applied to all of these places that you see in red and I was rejected, but that is fine. The rejections are a big part of the graduate applications process. You never know, you may make it through one of these colleges. Okay, and then comes the intermediate schools, which are not as stellar, which are not as famous, but nevertheless they're very good in your area of interest. For example, I've listed a couple of these universities, and this is not a very hard and fast classification. These things may change depending upon a person's research interest. These things may change depending upon a person's taste, for example. And finally, safety schools, which are not as famous, which are not very big schools, but nevertheless they have a good PhD program and a good international PhD program. For example, Montana State University or Washington State University. These are good places, but these are small places, not as well known. Okay. So the trick here is to include 2 to 3 dream schools, 3 to 4 intermediate schools, and 2 to 3 safety schools. Maximize the number of intermediate schools. Now, why do I say this? This ensures that your applications are not too optimistic. If you only apply to high-end places, like MIT, Harvard, and Princeton, there is a high chance that you may get rejected because, people from all across the globe are applying and trying to apply to these places. Okay. However, if you keep some intermediate schools, there is a slight increase in your chance. Okay. So you should always have some safety schools as a backup plan. Okay. Now let's talk about grades. Grades between 8 to 10, that is on a CGPA scale from 1 to 10, are considered good. However, you should not panic if your grades are below 8. 8 to 10 will roughly correspond to a percentage of 80% to 100% if you are from a college that gives you percentages instead of letter grades. Or for example, above B plus or B is considered from 8 to 10. However, you should not panic if you have a grade less than 8. This is just a guideline and you may very well make it through because grades are only a part of the application process. They do not in any way influence the entire application process. Okay. Uh, then research experience, of course, if you are in a college that has a research component, then you should pursue those projects. For example, MSc projects, which happen in the last semester. You're working with a faculty on a small research project, so pursue them with a complete dedication. Okay, and maintain a good, comfortable situation, a good, comfortable rapport with your advisor, because he's going to write a letter of recommendation for you. Okay. Uh, if you are from a college which does not have research component in their curriculum, what you can try is you can try to get some external research experience. For example, there are certain national level internships, right? For example, there is the National Academy of Sciences internship, right? There is the Summer Research Fellowship Program from JNCASR Research Labs in Bangalore. So they may provide very complementary experiences if you belong to a college that does not have research in their curriculum. Uh, and finally, it is not expected for you to be published in your master's degree. The places you are applying to know this thing, and they are very well aware of this fact that at this stage, it is not expected of a student to have published papers. Nevertheless, if you do have a published paper, that is going to strengthen your application. But do not panic if you do not have a publication. Okay, finally, I will come to the most important part, which in my opinion is the most important part of the application, and that is the statement of purpose. This is an essay which you will write, and that can make or break your application. And I would encourage everyone, when you are drafting a statement of purpose is a small essay, a 2-page essay, which describes why are you interested in a particular program, or why would you like to pursue this degree at the said university. Okay. uh, so you should set aside approximately a month to month and a half to draft your statement of purpose. Okay. Usually November is a good time. October end to November is a good time to start on these statements of purpose, and your statement of purpose should answer these questions. Now, I will not go over each of these things. You can read them in the slides when I will circulate them through. uh, the major thing which I wanted to tell you is that this statement of purpose should answer your impression of physics. Okay, what do you think about physics? What are your feelings towards physics? What are your impressions of the research areas? That is something which has to be conveyed in your statement of purpose. Okay, and another most important thing is that you should never ever plagiarize. And by plagiarize, I mean you should never copy from external sources. It may be internet, it may be seeing and drafting statements of purposes from different students who are applying with you. You should never ever copy, because the admissions committee are experts in detecting plagiarism. They have been doing this since many decades. And you should never ever write a thing which has been copied or which has been taken from a material that belongs to some other persons, that belongs to some other student. Okay, so that is one very important thing to keep in mind, that one should never ever try to cut and copy paste from different sources. And while you are drafted your statements of purposes, I will be very delighted to have and review them for you. So please do not shy away in emailing me your statements of purpose. You can find my email here. I'll be very happy to provide feedback and suggestions and improvements. And I will also share my contact number, so you can also add me on WhatsApp. There's a slide towards the end that has my contact details. So when you have done with your SOP, you can without any hesitation, contact me on this email ID. I'll be very happy to provide feedback. Finally, letters of recommendation. I will not go into each of these bullet points that I've written here, but letter of recommendation is the other most, if not as important, but slightly equally important as the statement of purpose, the letters of recommendation that your guides or your supervisors will write for you. These are the points which I say that how should you approach, how should you approach your supervisor for an LOR, or whom should you approach? For example, a professor who has guided you on an internship, a professor with which you have done a project, or if a professor who knows you very well in a classroom capacity. These people are considered optimal for writing your letters of recommendation. Now, you should not write it from someone who taught you one course in your BSc, because that person also will not be able to speak highly of your strengths. You want someone who can speak about your strengths to write you a good letter of recommendation. And the best person to write you is is a professor with whom you have done a research project. Okay. Now, there is some extra material. For example, this is an email which shows you the correct etiquette of how to ask for a letter of recommendation from one of your professors, this is how you should approach. This is how you should, supply materials so that it is extremely easy for the person writing your letter of reference to write a glowing letter of reference for you. So of course, this is not how you should start. You should, if possible, you should meet them in person. And once you have met them and once you have their consent that they will write your letter of recommendation, you can perhaps, you can make available all of these details that will help them to write your letter of recommendation. So this is an example correspondence. You can read them in your spare time. Then, of course, we've come to the GRE physics exam. GRE physics exam is optional. It is not compulsory, but I would highly encourage everyone. If you are sitting for graduate admissions, I will highly encourage everyone to write this exam. In India, it is offered twice a year, and one of the nearest places will be to take this exam in Bengaluru. And a couple of things about this exam, if you have done your MSc courses properly, I doubt that more than 2 weeks or 3 weeks of preparation is necessary for this exam. 2 to 3 weeks is more than enough to prepare for this examination. It is a slight perturbation over class 12 physics. Okay. So these are certain links. These are certain useful resources where you can find past year question papers, and these will be very helpful in helping you judge the level of examination. I will not cover the GRE general exam because I will leave it to you whether or not you wish to take this examination. If you do, these points will come in very handy for you. If you do not wish to take the GRE general exam, that's equally fine. Okay, so and finally TOEFL, of course. TOEFL is the test of English as a foreign language, and this is a compulsory test that needs to be taken. The good thing is that it is not a very difficult test. If you are comfortable conversing in English in day-to-day language, in day-to-day conversations, you will find this as a piece of cake. This is, it does not warrant more than a week of preparation, and the best place to prepare TOEFL is to Google and YouTube. On YouTube, you will find ample amount of lectures, ample amount of practice papers to prepare yourself for TOEFL. Now, why do I say YouTube? Because YouTube is multimedia, right? And this test also has multimedia components. There will be a part where you will have to listen to a conversation and write answers. There will be a part where you have to speak into the mic and write answers. So YouTube, I believe, is the best place to prepare for these for the TOEFL examination. I would go as far as saying that if you just know the basic structure and have not done any preparation, I'll say that you can very well clear TOEFL this examination. Okay, finally, there are certain pointers on how should you plan. What I have done here is I have given you a timeline as to when you should start. Okay, if you are taking the GREs, you should start a little earlier. If not, then you can start perhaps in September or October. And I have given in this slide, what I tell you is that I'm giving is a small timeline as to when should you start preparing for each examination. Usually GREs and TOEFLs are taken at the same time, or you can also take them separately. Since GRE general is not of importance anymore, so GRE physics and TOEFL are the only exams you will probably ever need. And GRE physics is usually earlier, and TOEFL is offered almost every week. In Chennai, for example, it's offered almost every week. So you can curtail your requirements accordingly. And another thing here is in this slide you will find how much of time or how should you go about applying the actual process of applications. So I should tell you that these applications have deadlines either in the 15th of December or on the 15th of January. Okay, so I would suggest to start 2.5 to 3 months before and have all your test results ready 2 to 3 weeks before the application deadlines. This is done because you need ETS. ETS is the authority that conducts these exams. You need ETS to send these exam results to the universities you are applying to. This will become clear to you when you actually write these exams, when you actually apply for these exams. But in most of the cases, even if you don't have the exam scores, it's fine. It can be adjusted later on. But the ideal takeaway is to start 2.5 to 3 months before, if you are only writing GRE physics and TOEFL for if you plan to start with the graduate applications. Okay, I will encourage all of you to read through these points and try to see and try to emulate these points. This is something which worked for me. This may or may not work for you. Of course, you are encouraged to find your own degree or to find your own plan. But this is written in the hope that it may be of some guidance to you. Okay, so I think I have been speaking for about 20 minutes now, and I will conclude. Needless to say, please do not shy away in contacting me. I'll be very happy to review your SOPs and when you draft them, and I will be very happy to give you feedback. I'll be also very happy to answer all your questions as far as my knowledge goes. You can reach me by email here, and this is my contact number. This is also the number I'm available on WhatsApp. And finally, if you succeed, which I'm pretty sure that all of you will, do keep me updated with your successes. So with this, I will stop and I will open the floor to the questions if anybody has any. Okay, I'll stop. Praveen, over to you.
Uh, Thanks, Avi. I mean, Aviril. Fine. So I think we'll move on to Mufid. He'll discuss on how
Okay.
to get to Europe, and after that
Okay.
we'll move on to the question session.
Okay.
Okay.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah. Mufid, you there, right? Mufid.
Am I audible now? Hello?
Yeah. Yes. 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 So, like I told you, Mufid is doing his PhD from France, Christmas, France. So he's working basically in condensed matter physics experiment. So he should be able to directly, Avi was working in theoretical physics, so he's working in experimental. So when you ask questions, you can plan them, okay, whom to ask and all, fine. So Mufi, you can start.
First of all, thank you very much, Praveen. Am I audible?
Yeah, yeah, good.
Okay, thank you very much, Praveen, for welcoming me. And thank you, Aviral, for a wonderful presentation. First of all, congrats for Bhauthik for wonderful work that you have been doing, helping a lot of students to build their career. Praveen is my senior, yes, also Aviral. I know them personally. They have been very helpful for me, especially Praveen. He's a wonderful teacher, I should say. He have been great help, not only for me, for our entire batch. He's a great teacher so I know for sure how beautifully he must be managing his classes in Bhauthik and all. And congrats for all the so before beginning my talk, I should mention one thing. Aviral basically comprehensively covered all the aspects of applying for a PhD position. So I don't want to repeat all those steps again. I should say it's the same for Europe also. All the points he mentioned, it's for an application, in point of application, it's the same. You have to go through all these points. So thank you very much, Aviral. So I don't want to repeat all those stuffs again. So I would also like to welcome questions from the audience. If you have any kind of questions regarding applying to Europe, I would like to welcome questions. So, Praveen, please.
Okay, thank you, Mufi. Like he said, we are almost exhausted all the topics, so all the points and all. So there is no point in repeating it again. So I think you can start with the questions.
So,
Amal is around, right? Amal?
yeah, Praveen, there is
Yeah,
just
Avi, you want to say?
Praveen, there is
Yeah.
just
Yes, yes.
one more point which I would like to mention. This is something which I
Yeah.
skipped and I realized later on. So most of you who are also applying to the United States or to Europe, most of you will also be writing national level examinations like UGC, for example, CSIR NET or the UGC, or for example, you'll be writing the GATE examination right? Or the JEST examination if you want to do PhDs in India, right? One very important thing is that even if when you qualify, which you will, of course, with Praveen as a teacher, I'm very sure that you guys will qualify these examinations. Do mention these examinations in your statement of purpose. For example, if I may very quickly, in a very short in a very short snapshot, I'd like to show you this slide. This I went over in very quick passing, but if you see, I have written down, I have mentioned my performance in CSIR net in 2017, and that goes to strengthen your application, if anything. So if if the universities in the United States, they are aware of the kind of national level examinations that happen in physics in India. So if you perform in these examinations, if you obtain a rank, you should definitely put them down in your CV, in your statement of purpose, and in any correspondence with your advisor. So yeah, that was all.
Thank you, Akhil. So I think we can move on to questions. Amal is around. Amal?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. So we can. Thing is like I'm logged in from a tablet, so I can't see the questions and all coming up. So we can manage that, right?
Okay.
Yeah, fine. Thank you. So you can ask questions. You can type in the chat box. We'll reply to that. Okay. Thank you.
You see if anyone is typing? I don't think so. You can also just unmute yourself and ask us. Okay, so one question is, does GRE and TOEFL exams have validity? Yes. So the thing is, I believe the validity is for 3 years, but they may have changed because 3 years was the time when I took my TOEFL exams. GRE and TOEFL are essentially conducted by the same organization that's called ETS, testing services, some e-testing services. And these results are valid for 3 years. So essentially, if you have taken them once, and if you plan to apply the next year, these results will be valid the next year. But please check on their official websites as to exact validity duration. At my time, it was 3 years. It may still be 3 years, or it may have changed. Thank you. Okay, another question. Is there any scholarship for studying in abroad by the government of India? Okay, that's a very good question. That is something which is usually the concern of many students when they have been selected. So as far as United States is concerned, you do not need to worry about your expenses, because all PhD positions in the United States are funded by the college themselves. You do not need to pay a single dime on your education in the US if you are doing a PhD. Okay, this only holds for PhD. This does not hold for masters. Only for PhD, you will be funded by the department, by the physics department at the respective university. You will so how do you earn this? How do you earn this money? You either act as a TA, a teaching assistant, assisting undergrads and grading their homeworks, or you are a research assistant with the professor and the professor pays you. So you will not need to worry about any of your expenses if you are going to study in the United States. Okay, now I will give this platform over to Mufid, because the situation in Europe is a little different than it is in the United States. So you can perhaps speak a little bit about scholarships for Europe.
Yes. First of all, in Europe, we have funded PhDs as well as non-funded PhDs. So it's always better to look for funded PhDs. You can, I will share some websites with details with Praveen, so that you will all have the details where you can find good PhD positions with funded research. That's it.
Okay.
We are receiving a lot of questions.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I
From
can go in order.
Nancy is asking, what about the personal expenses you have to pay?
Okay. So in the United States, your salary will be comfortable enough to sustain a two-person family like you and someone else as well who is not employed. But mostly people will be there on their own. So wherever you will be, you will not need to work anywhere. The stipend that you will receive from the department will take care of your personal expenses, and you will be able to save approximately a fourth of your monthly salary towards savings if you would like to. So yeah, that's for the month personal expense. Yes.
Yeah, a word about expenses in Europe as well. It's kind of the same. It depends on the city you are living in. But as Aviral said, you will be able to save one fourth of your salary if it's a funded project. There is a minimum salary depends on the city you're living in and the expenses and all. So you should be able to save at least one fourth of your salary.
Okay. So, for a question for Mufid, is there any exam like IELTS or GRE for getting PhD in Europe? Kevin Chaco.
In most of the European countries, they don't consider English as their primary language. So it's always better if you have qualified these exams. At least you have a as a basic requirement. If it's always better, but it's not mandatory for applying for these positions, as far as I know.
Okay. One more question, like from Catherine. It's like she's asking whether you can clear the exam after sending the SOP and all. Is it fine?
Yeah. So it is advisable to take your TOEFL before you apply. However, the thing is, if your results are awaited, so you'll have to write the exam before you submit your application. That should be there. It will be fine if the exam results are not available by the time the deadline is there. Those can be adjusted, but in any case, you should take the exam before you submit the application. It is not a big deal if the results are not out as yet. Whenever the results will be out, they will be sent to the university you are applying to, but you should nevertheless take the exam before you submit your application.
Okay. Question for Mufid from Sarangi. Which qualifier examination we should look for while applying in Europe?
Yes, we mentioned earlier. Yes. As we mentioned earlier, it's always better if you have qualified the exams like GATE, NET, and all. It gives a good point for your CV. It's a good weightage, but there are no specific exams that you need to qualify to get into universities in Europe. Yes, that's it.
Okay. One question from Heyman. I think it's important. Like, how do you prepare for the interview, and like what you should expect? How should you prepare? Both you, Avril and Mufid, both of you.
So Hemant, there are no interviews as far as admissions to US universities are concerned. In very rare cases, you may be asked for an interview. For example, I know Washington State University in Pullman, they conduct an interview, but it is a very simple interview. It's nothing physics related. It is mostly generic as to why do you want to pursue physics, or whom do you like to work, whom would you like to work with, where would you like to, what research area would you like to work with. So it's very much doable. But apart from that one university, I have not seen any place taking an interview.
Yeah, it's the same. There are universities which ask for interview, but they will ask, as Aviral said, general questions. Also, your interest. You should be able to express your interest in the whatever positions you are applying on. Like they will check that you will be able to work with an interest in this project, other than getting a PhD, just a PhD.
Okay. One more question. Whether the gap, like after MSc, say you have a gap of 1 or 2 years, will that make a bad impact on your application? I don't know the name. It's WROX. Yeah, you can answer. Both of you.
So Mufid, you can go first.
Yes, from my side, I will say if you have that gap, you should be able to explain why you took that gap in a proper way. Like you can say you have been working, then you got interested into doing research, or you have been teaching. You should be able to explain it in either in your ASOP or in CV or in the interview, whatever it is. You should be able to explain it properly. So the gap is it's better if there is no gap, but even if there is a gap, it's okay. You can explain it. I have been working somewhere, or then, as I said, you can express the interest which you are applying for the position.
Yes, I agree
Okay,
with
thank you.
Mufid completely. You should be able to justify that gap. Like if you were working somewhere, that is going to work in your favor because that says that you have had a professional experience, and universities tend to hire people with the professional experience. Yeah, as he Mufid said, that it is preferable that there is no education gap. And what I mean by gap is there should not be a period of being idle. You should have been doing something, or there should be something to justify. Yeah.
One question from Ram, whether they consider IELTS or TOEFL, like which one do they prefer, or is there anything like that they prefer one over the other or something like that?
So IELTS is not for the United States. That is usually for Canada or United Kingdom, if my memory serves me correct. So UK and
Yes,
Canada
yes.
have this IELTS, but as far as United States is concerned, it's only TOEFL. That's it. Yeah, because there
For
is
you,
also a
Thank you, Abhi.
difference of accent. There is also a difference of accent if you are preparing for IELTS and TOEFL. And in addition to that, there is a slight difference in spellings. For example, the spelling for shop in British English is SHOP, but the spelling for shop in American English is SHOPPE. Or for example, color, it's COLOUR for British English, but COLOR for TOEFL, right? So that is some slight things to take care. I think there are some questions which we kind of skipped over. I think Shakti has a question. Shakti Vale. Uh, Criteria of CGPA above 8 is only for PG, or is it also for UG and 10 plus 2? So your 10 plus 2 grades will not affect anything. That is a given. UG grades and PG grades combined. So I don't say that. Mm, in my best opinion, it would be preferable if both UG and PG have grades better than 8. But I would say a slightly more weightage will be given to your master's grades, your MSc grades, PG grades.
Thanks, Abhijal. One more question from Nancy. She's asking whether there are any age limits are there. Like, can you expect to be selected after he or she is after, say, 30s or something?
I don't
Is
think
there
there
any
are
age
any age
limit?
limits. There are no age limits. Absolutely no age limits.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes. As we mentioned before, it depends on your interest, and you should be able to convince them that you're interested in research and all. There is no age limit or anything.
Okay, one more question from Lipsa. She's asking what your options after PhD, after doing a PhD abroad. Yeah, you can answer that anyway. Yeah, you can answer. Fine.
Yeah. So Mufid, go ahead, please.
Sorry. Can you repeat the question,
Um,
please?
so things like we have the webinar on like how to get into PhD. So Lipsa is asking, what is your plans after PhD? Like, what are the opportunities and all? If you can answer, that will be good. Otherwise, we can
Okay. Since it's a personal question,
like
my
is the
plans
only
after
is
PhD,
the
yes,
no
yes.
things like what I
Okay,
meant.
so I
I
will.
think what still.
Yes. I understood the question. So
Mm-hmm.
personally,
What are the
I
options?
don't want to continue in academia. Is If you're asking in general, you can get into academia, and you can look for as far as experimental physicist. I would say there are a lot of R&Ds which requires physicists. Also, what else? You can do postdocs, and you can continue your research in the same field if you want as a research assistant. Yes.
Yeah, same from my side
Okay.
as well. You can either continue in academia, in which case you will need to do a postdoc, or a couple of postdocs. If you want to diversify into industry, that is also a very good option. You will be paid much more, at least in the United States. Both of these things are open. You can either go to industry or academia. Personally, for myself, right now, I am inclining to continue in academia, but that may change by the time I finish my PhD.
Thank you, Abhinav. So, any more questions? Yeah, we're not getting much questions.
I think Catherine has this question. How can we find a fund? Can you repeat the question, Praveen, so that everyone? Can you see that?
She's asking how can we find a funded work? Is there a special site or something, some website or something that you can go and search for it and something like that?
So you don't have to worry about finances for US. So I think this will be a better question aimed at Mufid. So
yes, actually, I'm going to share some details of websites to Praveen so that he can distribute to all of you guys, where you can find funded projects and all. So I will share those details. That's better, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I think no more questions are coming up. I think we have covered all the points.
I think there are some questions, and that is one very important question by Teresa. It says, is there any format for email that needs to be sent to professors for PhD position? And I'd like to say this. This is actually an excellent question. So the thing is, I will strongly discourage you to write an email before applying for your PhD positions to United States. As far as the US universities are concerned, the professors here and professors in general receive approximately 100 to 150 emails every day. So it is not likely that, and professors tend to ignore emails, which are from people that are requesting to work with them if they are not from a proper channel. Right, and the proper channel being the PhD applications, the university applications. So I will strongly discourage you to write any emails to professors because in all likelihood, they will not look at it. And even if they look at it, they will not reply. So it is not a good idea to write to professors inquiring about the PhD positions, because PhD positions are not professor specific, rather they are department specific. So you apply to the department, you do not apply to the professor as far as US is concerned. It may be different for Europe. Mufid may comment on that.
Yes, I strongly agree with Aviral. Actually, it's always better to go through a proper channel. Like first you should, as I mentioned before, first you should look into open positions. There will be open positions announced in web pages of respective universities or research labs, something like that. Because even if some professors want to take you as a student, as a researcher, if it doesn't have a funding, it's useless. So it's always better to look for an open position, then apply. If you find an open position, then you can mail the respective professor regarding this position. Maybe he can help, but there should be some positions first.
Okay. Any more questions? If you have any questions, you can type in the chat box. The speakers will answer to that.
Yeah, so I think Lipsa shares that what if we don't wish to come back? This is one thing which is a little technical. So all the student visas to the United States, they are called F1 visas. Those are the graduate student visas to the United States. They are offered solely on the condition that you do not show any intention of staying in the United States and you show a strong intention of coming back. Okay, now there can be two ways. Okay, one, for some people, they go to the US, they get their education and they come back to India and settle as professors. But there is also a sizable population of students who will go there and would like to settle down for several reasons. There can be several reasons for settling down. They may like the life there, they may like the work culture there. So there can be personal reasons to that. However, as far as student visas are concerned, as far as your graduate applications are concerned, you should not give any reason, you should not display any reason of permanently settling in the United States if you want to get a visa, because it is explicitly against the issuance of a student visa that you show an interest of settling in there, okay, or of settling in the United States. So student visas are issued on a condition that you do not stay there permanently. You come back and work in your country. So that is one thing which I wanted to make clear.
Okay,
Thank you,
I have a personal advice for all of you who have joined for this talk. Even if you're applying for abroad like US or Europe, I strongly recommend that you should also parallelly you should try to get into Indian universities. At least try to clear these exams, GATE, NET, and all. It's very useful. Even if you get a PhD position in Europe, it's very useful if you cleared all these exams. It's going to improve your CV. So don't sit idle. Apply to Europe parallelly. You should prepare for these exams as well. It's I'm telling you from the experience. It's very useful and it's highly recommended.
Okay. I think we are not receiving more questions. One general question, because you both are doing PhD abroad, how do you contrast a PhD in India and abroad? Like in terms of the quality of research, the exposure and all. Just can you give an overview? Like, can you contrast? Like, what are the benefits and all?
I can answer this question. So in India, if you are doing a PhD from a premier institute, right? For example, TIFR or ICTS or any of the IITs, right? Institutes which are at the forefront of the science, of the kind of science they are doing. Or for material sciences, there are places like JNCASR or Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, where condensed matter is at the forefront. Then there is very, very little difference between PhDs abroad and PhDs in the US as against PhDs in India. However, if you do your PhD from a university which is not as much as the forefront, like IITs, for example, you may take say a relatively lesser known NIT, right, or BITS, for examples. Then you will find a more sharp difference between these things. One of the things which can affect which can affect your decision is the salary, because of course when you are abroad, you are getting paid according to the economic crux of the land. So your salary, if you compare to Indian salary, is higher. However, in India, if you work in premier institutes, there will not be much of a difference. But if you work in, for example, institutes which are not as premier, you will find a lot of difference. There may be, I'm not saying that there may be instances of frustration that may set in. As far as research opportunities and infrastructure is concerned, again, my answer remains the same. If you are at a premier institute in India, the infrastructure is equally good as any American university, because I myself have done some research in some of the good institutes, better institutes in India. So I can say this with conviction that if you are at a premier place, there is no difference. There's virtually no difference. But if you are at a sub-threshold place, you may find more differences.
Okay, thank you, Gabriel.
Yeah.
One question from Manasa. She's asking, like, say in India, we have this 5-year period, right? After that, it won't be funded. So is there anything like that in Europe or US? Say if you're given a 3-year period, after that, you won't be getting any funding. You have to manage on your own. Is there anything like that? Both to you. Mukhi, you can.
So this thing, yeah, sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I should comment on that. Actually, in Europe, most of the PhD positions are for 3 years, and you have to. The funding is for 3 years. You have to finish it in 3 years, or in somewhere it's also for 4 years. No matter what, they're going to ask you to finish your PhD, or if you are in extreme case, if you are not able to finish it, Mm, I don't know they're going to extend it or not. I think you will get some lower degree like MS or something, but not PhD. I think that's the case.
What about you, Abhiram? Abhiram
Yeah.
can comment
So
on
in
that.
the United States, typically physics PhDs are 5 to 6 years of duration, and you are covered for 6 years. But the guarantee that you will be financially covered rests a lot on you. So you should be performing well in your courses. You should be making constant progress in your research. So making constant progress in research is a prerequisite for you to be constantly funded. Okay, so that is something. And physics PhDs in the US can also take longer. I have seen people in their 7th year as well. So that totally depends on your supervisor. If your supervisor says that the project is of such a nature that it may require more time, so that is completely possible. Especially that happens for people doing theoretical physics, like pen and paper based physics. They take usually long time scales to finish their PhDs, and 6 to 7 years is the norm. But most physics PhDs, 90% of physics PhDs will be finished in 5 to 6 years.
Thank you, Abhiram.
Yeah.
So I think we can wind up the session because it'll be really late there, right, for Abhi?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah. So those are the main points. I think we covered all the main points from Mufid, Europe and the US, how to get a PhD there, and we contrasted like what the benefits are for going abroad and doing in India or something. So like them, both Mufid and Abril have mentioned, these exams, national level exams, these foreign universities, they're aware of our national exam, so they'll definitely look into it, and they may ask like, why didn't you give this exam or something like that. Okay, so it's better to have a good rank in these exams. So we at Bhauthik, we provide this coaching for these exams. Even say if you want to go for a PhD in India, it's a must. So if you're applying abroad, they may ask you like, why don't you apply for this exam? Or if you have like Abril said, he mentioned it in his CV that he got this rank, 63 rank in CSN, right? So that'll give you an edge, definitely give you an edge over other applicants. So we provide you these coachings, and like I said, even if you're doing an MSc or if you have graduated, you can trust on us, you can count on us. We'll help you. We'll give you the counsels mainly. So that's an important aspect. I think Manasa is here. So she was a topper last time in last batch. She cleared this exam when she was in MSc first year. Okay. So there is nothing like you have to wait till you finish your MSc to go for a coaching or study along. So since we are an online coaching institute, we are dealing with students like individually. Okay, we'll be giving care to each and everyone individually. So if you have any doubts or clarifications, you can ask us directly. Okay. So we'll be limiting the number of students this time so that we can give individual attention. Yeah, the admissions are open. If you are interested, either you can message me. My number is in the WhatsApp group. You can text to any of the admins, or you can go to our website. You have registered for the webinar, and you can register for the course. Okay. So I should be thanking Viral. It should be like around 2 a.m. in the morning was there, something like that. So big thanks to Abigail for giving a wonderful talk. Same for Mufid for your interest and giving answering all the questions. So I'm thanking both of you in what should I say? Okay, big thanks to both of you guys. Thank you. So we're binding in the session.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Okay, so all the best for all of you. So
okay, thank you all the guys, all the participants.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.